Story 1, The Sirens Learned Our Voices. I grew up in a town so small the highway had more memories than the people. When the mill shut down, the nights got quieter. Too quiet. Radios crackled with static more than music, and the woods pressed in like they were listening. That's when the sounds began. It started as an emergency broadcast, cutting through the local station at odd hours. Tornado warning tones without a storm. Evacuation orders naming streets that didn't exist. Sometimes the voice was familiar, our old sheriff, long retired, other times it was my mother, calling my name in a calm that didn't belong to her. I'd switch the radio off and sit in the dark, waiting for my heart to slow. Everyone had a theory. Faulty transmitter. Vandal kids. A dying tower echoing ghosts. But the sounds followed us. You could hear them from the fields, from the tree line, drifting like fog. And always, beneath the voice, there was a low mechanical breathing. Two tones, alternating. Sirens. I saw it the first time on a back road I'd driven 1,000 times. The night was thick with mist, the kind that turns headlights into walls. My radio cut out mid-song and the sirens rolled in, slow and patient. I pulled over, thinking maybe an ambulance was stuck behind me. That's when the sound rose, too high, too wide, and the trees answered with a shiver. It stood where the road bent into the forest, taller than the pines, a silhouette stitched together from rust and shadow. Its legs were like poles driven into the earth. Its body, a spine of steel and cables. And where a head should be, there were sirens, 2 of them, tilted toward the road like listening ears. The voice came through clear as glass. "Please remain calm," it said, using the tone from the old school drills. "Assistance is on the way." I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I watched the siren swivel, scanning, searching. The voice changed. My mother again. "Honey," it called softly, "you left the porch light on." I drove. I don't remember shifting. I don't remember the turn. I remember the sound stretching after me, following the road, pacing my speed. When I reached town, the sound faded, like it had hit a boundary it wouldn't cross. The next morning, Mrs. Calder's farm was empty. No blood. No mess. Just a fence bent outward, and footprints that ended where the grass was flattened into a long, straight line toward the woods. We stopped using radios. Phones, too. But the thing learned. It used the town siren next. Then the church bells. Then voices we trusted. It stood beyond the last streetlight, letting the sounds roll in waves, waiting for someone to step closer. A volunteer search went out for a missing boy near the creek. We gathered at dusk, flashlights bobbing, fear held together by rules and radios we swore we wouldn't turn on. That's when the sirens sang again, urgent, official, promising answers. Half the group broke formation, chasing the sound into the trees. I followed, because I knew better and because knowing didn't matter. The woods opened into a clearing with an old radio tower, dead for decades. The thing was there, framed by fog, sirens tilted downward now, broadcasting a gentle instruction. "This area is unsafe. Please proceed." The people around me slowed, then stopped, like sleepwalkers reaching the edge of a dream. The sound pressed on my chest, heavy and warm. I tasted copper. The voice shifted through the crowd, calling names, tugging memories loose. I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed back. Not words. Just noise. Raw and human. I ran straight at it, eyes down, flashlight off. The sirens flared, the sound spiked, and the ground trembled as it leaned, curious, maybe annoyed. I threw the flashlight past it into the brush. The sirens followed the light. Just for a breath. I grabbed the nearest hand and pulled. Then another. We ran until the sounds tangled and thinned, until the forest swallowed them whole. By morning, the tower was gone. Not toppled. Gone. The clearing was smooth, like it had never been there. We told the state what we could. They told us what they always do. The town is quieter now. Too quiet again. But sometimes, when the fog rolls in and the radios hiss without power, I hear the sirens far off, practicing new voices. If you hear one you recognize, don't answer. Don't follow. Keep moving. It's listening. Story 2. Emergency alerts don't come from the towers anymore. They installed the new emergency sirens the same summer the town stopped growing. Our county had always been spread thin, miles of forest, forgotten dirt roads, a few clusters of houses clinging to power lines like afterthoughts. When the state announced a modernization project, nobody complained. New sirens meant safety. Tornado warnings. Chemical spill alerts. That sort of thing. At least, that's what we were told. I worked nights as a utility inspector, driving back roads to check transformers and lines. Most nights were nothing but insects on the windshield and the low hum of tires on asphalt. That changed the night the sirens went live. It was just after midnight when the first test sounded. Not loud, distant. Muffled. Like it was traveling through too many trees to be real. The tone rose and fell slowly, dragging something uneasy behind it. My radio crackled, but no alert followed. No announcement. Just the sound. I called it in. Dispatch said there was no scheduled test. I shut the engine off and stepped out of the truck. The forest pressed close, black and breathing. The siren echoed again, closer this time, but wrong somehow, too layered, like multiple speakers trying to sync and failing. Then it spoke. "This is an emergency," a calm voice said, carried on the sound. "Remain where you are." I froze. The voice was mine. Same cadence. Same slight hitch on the R. My own voice, broadcast back at me from somewhere deep in the woods. The siren cut out. Silence rushed in so hard my ears rang. I didn't stay to think. I got back in the truck and drove until the road numbers started making sense again. The next morning, a family living near mile marker 12 didn't answer their door. Their car sat in the driveway. Coffee still warm in the kitchen. Back door open, leading straight into the trees. Search teams found the footprints first, long, uneven strides pressed deep into the soil. They weren't human. Too far apart. Too straight. That's when people started reporting voices. A woman heard her husband calling from the tree line after his funeral. A kid followed his school principal's voice into the woods and had to be dragged back, screaming, when the sound changed mid-sentence into something metallic and stretched. The county shut the sirens down. Or at least, they tried. They still sounded. Not from the poles. From the forests. I saw it 2 weeks later while checking a downed line after a storm. Fog clung low, swallowing the trunks at knee height. The siren rolled through the mist again, slow and patient. This time, I didn't hear words at first. Just breathing. Mechanical. Measured. Then the fog shifted. Something tall moved between the trees, careful not to rush. Each step bent branches without snapping them. When it leaned forward, the sirens emerged, twin horns mounted where a head should have been, rusted and scarred like they'd been scavenged from decades of wreckage. Power lines draped across its frame like veins. The sirens turned. "This area is unsafe," it said gently. "Follow the sound." I backed away, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. The thing didn't chase. It didn't need to. It just stood there, letting the sound spill out, letting curiosity and fear do the work. Behind me, something answered. A voice crying for help. Another inspector. New guy. I'd trained him. He came stumbling through the fog, eyes unfocused, mouth moving silently along with the words pouring from the sirens. When he saw me, relief flashed across his face. "Thank God," he said. "It said you were hurt." The sirens shifted again, closer now, louder. "Approach calmly," my voice said. "Assistance is available." I grabbed his jacket and pulled him back. The sound sharpened instantly, spiking like an alarm pushed too far. The thing leaned forward, sirens screaming now, drowning thought, drowning instinct. We ran. Branches clawed at us. The ground dropped and rose without warning. Behind us, the sound followed, not fast, but relentless, adjusting, learning the rhythm of our fear. We didn't stop until we hit the road. The sirens cut out at the tree lean, like an invisible wall stopped them. The fog thinned. Dawn crept in, pale and uncertain. The new guy never spoke again. Not really. He'd stare toward the woods when the wind carried certain frequencies. He quit within a week. So did I. The official report blamed faulty infrastructure. Hallucinations. Stress. The sirens were dismantled. Towers removed. But sometimes, late at night, when the power hum drops just low enough, I hear it again. Not loud. Not urgent. Just patient. Calling my name in my own voice, from somewhere far beyond the trees, waiting for the day I decide to listen. Story 3, I was a fire lookout until the sirens found me. The last summer I worked fire watch, I learned that silence can be trained. I spent 3 months alone in an old lookout tower deep in the state forest, the kind of job meant to spot smoke before it turned into something worse. No internet. No cell service. Just a radio, binoculars, and a view of trees stretching farther than my thoughts ever could. At first, the quiet drove me crazy. Then it started to feel normal. Comfortable, even. That's when the sirens came back. The first time I heard them, I thought it was a distant town test. A long, wavering howl rolling over the treetops, distorted by miles of forest. It didn't bother me much until I realized the direction kept changing. One moment it came from the north. The next, from directly below the tower. I picked up the radio and called it in. No response. Just static. Then a voice slid through the noise, calm and official. "Fire watch station, this is emergency management. Please remain at your post." The voice used my name. That was the first night I didn't sleep. Over the next week, the sounds returned every evening just after sunset. Always faint. Always patient. I stopped calling it in when I realized the radio only spoke when the sirens did. During the day, it was dead. At night, it whispered instructions. Stay inside. Lights off. Windows closed. I followed them at first. You do, when you're isolated long enough. Authority feels heavier when you're alone. On the 8th night, the sirens were closer than they'd ever been. Not loud, just near. I leaned out of the tower with my binoculars, scanning the sea of black trunks below. The moon caught something tall moving between the trees, unnaturally slow. It wasn't walking. It was placing itself forward. Each step was deliberate, like it was careful not to rush the moment. Power lines sagged across its frame, humming faintly as it passed beneath them. Its body was narrow and impossibly tall, like a structure that had learned how to move. And at the top. Sirens. 2 massive horns bolted together, turning independently as they searched. When they tilted upward toward the tower, the sound softened into a low warning tone. "This area is compromised," the voice said. My supervisor's voice this time. "Descend immediately." I backed away from the railing so fast I nearly fell. That night, it circled the tower. I could hear it stepping through brush, never snapping branches, never tripping. The sirens never stopped, but they changed. Weather alerts. Evacuation notices. Recorded voices from drills I hadn't thought about in years. Sometimes, between tones, I heard breathing, slow, mechanical, satisfied. By morning, there were footprints around the base of the tower. They were too long. Too straight. Like something had dragged 2 poles through the dirt. I packed my things and prepared to hike out. Protocol didn't matter anymore. But when I reached the ladder, the radio crackled to life on its own. "Remain where you are," my own voice said. "Help is en route." I froze. I hadn't spoken into that radio all week. The sirens sounded again, closer now, rising through the trees like something waking up. I made it halfway down the ladder before the sound spiked, sharp enough to rattle the bolts in the tower. I climbed back up and locked the hatch. That night, it tried something new. The sirens went silent. In their place came footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Heavy. Metal on wood. With each step, a voice spoke calmly, reassuringly, telling me everything would be fine if I just opened the hatch. It sounded like a ranger I'd worked with years ago. A man who died in a controlled burn accident. The steps stopped just below the platform. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a long while, the sirens resumed, soft this time, almost disappointed. By dawn, the forest was empty again. On the 10th day, smoke appeared on the horizon. A real fire. I called it in immediately, panic cutting through my voice. The response came instantly. "Do not report," the radio said. "The fire is contained." It wasn't. The smoke grew thicker by the hour. Ash drifted past the tower like black snow. And from the fire line, the sirens sang louder than ever, harmonizing with the crackle of burning trees. I understood then. It didn't warn people. It guided them. The fire never reached the tower. It curved around it, unnaturally precise, leaving a perfect ring of scorched earth below. By the time evacuation crews reached me, the sirens were gone. They told me I'd been delirious. Dehydrated. Alone too long. The tower was dismantled the next year. But every wildfire season, when emergency alerts light up phones and sirens wail in distant towns, I still listen closely. Because sometimes, beneath the warning tone, I hear something else. A patient rhythm. Waiting for someone to follow the sound.